What is up, bros and broettes? I am Inkslasher, and welcome to Evolution, the series where we look at the history of Call of Duty. And man, has it been a long time since I made one of these videos. It's been almost 6 months, half a year since I made one of these, and I'm sorry for that, but we kind of got distracted with the release of Call of Duty World War II. But we are back now. I saw all the comments, I saw how many of you wanted the series to continue, and today we're starting with a weapon. As you guys know, on this series, we look at weapons, game modes, kill streaks, and pretty much everything that's been in Call of Duty games, and look at how far they go back and where they are now. And today, we just so happen to be looking at the M4, one of the most iconic weapons in all of Call of Duty. Now, if you have any suggestions of what you'd like me to focus on in the future, whether it be a weapon, game mode, kill streak, or anything, let me know down in the comments below. Also, I will say these videos, the Evolution series, these are the hardest videos to make. They take the longest time to put together. So if you do enjoy this series and want to see more videos like this one, the way to show me is by hitting that like button. The more likes this video gets, the faster I can upload future videos just like this one. But without further ado, let's start by talking about the origin of the M4 in Call of Duty. It all began back in Call of Duty 4. Now, of course, the same weapon is now in Modern Warfare Remastered, and that's what you're watching the gameplay of right now. This is, in my opinion, the most iconic of all of the M4s in Call of Duty. When I think of one, this is the one I think of. Now, as far as the stats go on the M4, it's pretty simple. Normally, it's a 4 to a 5 bullet kill. However, in Call of Duty 4, you could opt to use stopping power, and if you did so, that would drop down to a 3 to a 4 bullet kill. On top of this, this weapon had a pretty fast fire rate at 857 RPM. Now, what really made this weapon, if you ask me, isn't either of those two stats. It's how little recoil it actually had in the game. This thing was basically a laser beam, and in conjunction with that fast fire rate, it was super easy to pick people off at long range. Now, by no means was the M4 the best weapon in Call of Duty 4. It was simply overshadowed by its big brother in Call of Duty 4, the M16. That being said, this was definitely a fan favorite in the game and was brought back in the next Modern Warfare game, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Now, one important difference between the two games is actually the name of the weapon. In Call of Duty 4, it was called the M4 Carbine, whereas in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, it was titled the M4A1. Now, not like in the game, but in real life, there's actually a difference between those two weapons. An M4 Carbine can be fired in two modes, semi-automatic and burst fire, whereas an M4A1 can be fired semi-automatic or fully auto. So, the version that you were actually looking at in Call of Duty 4 was not an M4 Carbine, it was more like an M4A1, because, of course, it was fully automatic. Now, as I mentioned, the name may be different, but what isn't different is the stats. In fact, this weapon is almost identical to that of the M4 from Call of Duty 4. Like I said before, this weapon is a 4 to a 5 bullet kill, or a 3 to a 4 bullet kill if using stopping power. And just like Call of Duty 4, this weapon has an 857 fire rate. The difference is, and this is just my opinion, I don't have stats to support this, but the difference is, to me, is that in Modern Warfare 2, the M4 has a little bit more recoil than it did in Call of Duty 4. And as I mentioned, all of the other stats are exactly the same. Reload time, aim down sights time, everything in between is exactly the same. The only real difference I can see is that recoil. Now, the other thing to mention is that this, once again, was not one of the best weapons in the game. It was a decent weapon, just like the M4 from Call of Duty 4. However, once again, it was overshadowed by weapons like the UMP, the FAMAS, and simply other faster killing weapons than the M4A1 in Modern Warfare 2. Now, the next Call of Duty game is Call of Duty Black Ops 1, and you may be thinking, there is no M4 in that game, and in saying that, you would be right, but at the same time, kind of wrong. The weapon that we're going to be talking about in this game is the Commando. Now, no, it's not called an M4, but it's in the same family of weapons. And in fact, before the US Army used an M4 rifle, it actually used something called a CAR-15. Now, a variant of the CAR-15 is called the Colt Commando. The weapon that takes place in Black Ops 1 is this exact thing. So another name you may have heard of this weapon is the CAR-15. And of course, this is just Colt's version of the AR-15. Now, this weapon definitely was a fan favorite in this game, but once again, by no means was it the best in the game. Other assault rifles that did a little bit better than it were both the FAMAS and the Galil. Some people even preferred the AK-47 over this weapon as well. Now, as far as stats go, this is actually the first Call of Duty game without stopping power. That is, of course, not one of the original games that didn't have perks. So in this game, the weapon was already kind of changed a bit, so it was just always a 3 to a 4 bullet kill. The difference, however, in this game is the fire rate. This weapon only had a fire rate of 750 RPM. Remember, the previous games had 857 RPM. The only other stats that are really different than the other Call of Duty games are, first of all, this weapon had a lot more recoil. It didn't have that signature low recoil of the M4 from Call of Duty 4, and the other one is it reloaded just a little bit slower than the previous two M4s. Up next, we got Modern Warfare 3, and this iteration is once again the M4A1. Now, this is actually going to be the worst of the weapons we've talked about so far. First of all, the difference with this weapon is it's going to be a 3 to a 5 bullet kill. It drops off 2 times. Also, on top of that, the fire rate is once again slower at 789. Not quite that 750 from Black Ops 1, but slower than the previous games. Another big difference is the range isn't as good as it was on previous weapons as well. So not only are you going to have to use more bullets to kill, that's going to happen sooner than the previous Call of Duty games as well. Now, oddly, the rest of the stats are exactly the same as Modern Warfare 2 and Call of Duty 4. Once again, with that low recoil pattern, the exact same reload times as in Modern Warfare 1 and 2, and of course the same magazine size. So a very similar weapon, it just has a little bit slower of a time to kill with a little bit worse of a range. After Modern Warfare 3, we move on to Black Ops 2, a game that actually does not have an M4 in it. However, the game was originally supposed to have an M4 in it. And how do I know this? If we look at the original promotional poster for Call of Duty Black Ops 2, it actually showcases a soldier holding an M4. Of course, this promotional image was changed to holding pistols. However, it was supposed to be in the game originally. What it got replaced by was the M27. Now, once again, this weapon, it behaves and acts very similar to the M4 in game. Once again, with that low recoil, average rate of fire. Another thing to support this is once again the fire rate of 750 RPM. The exact same as the Commando from Black Ops 1. Another interesting thing about this weapon is similar to the previous M4s we talked about, definitely wasn't the best weapon in the game. Once again, just being very, very average, similar to the previous games. The next game that would kind of have an M4 in it would be Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Now, I know you're probably thinking this is not true at all, and this one's kind of a stretch, but some people say the AE4 was supposed to be a futuristic version of the M4. Now, none of the stats match up for this. In fact, it is not even a bullet weapon, it is a laser weapon. However, this is kind of supposed to represent a futurized version of the M4. Whether you believe that or not, that's up to you. I just thought I would throw it in there just for information's sake. Now, the final M4 we have to look at is in Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, and it's not called an M4, it's called an NV4. Now, this checks all the boxes of the trademarks of an M4. First of all, it looks incredibly similar. On top of that, it has that average rate of fire, the average damage profile, and that extremely low recoil. Now, the interesting thing about this weapon is comparatively in its own game, out of all of the weapons we've talked about today, this one is probably the best. In fact, by many people, the NV4 was considered to be the best weapon in Infinite Warfare. However, stat-wise, comparatively to all the other weapons we looked at today, this actually has the worst stats. The NV4 is a 4 to a 5 bullet kill and has a fire rate of 612 RPM. That is the slowest fire rate out of any of the weapons that we've looked at today. So, just because it was the best in its designated game doesn't mean it's the best overall. If you're wondering how this is possible because you thought the NV4 was so good in Infinite Warfare, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, it has incredibly low recoil, super easy to aim with. You can pick people off way across maps very, very easily. But also, the rest of the weapons in Infinite Warfare also had a slower time to kill relative to the Call of Duty games. So because of that, it made the NV4 that much better. But that is all of the M4s and M4-esque weapons in Call of Duty games to date. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Let me know which M4 was personally your favorite. To me, I gotta go all the way back to Call of Duty 4. That's the first one I used, and it just brings back a lot of nostalgia. But like I said, let me know what one's your favorite down in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed the video, like I said earlier, it would be awesome if you could hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel and like what you see, you can hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on all my videos. But guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace out.
We are reaching for the stars, but we're making this to us.